Born Before 64 is a TV show that asks the vital question, what will we do for the rest of our lives? Kathryn Raaker hosts a show for baby boomers and above, inviting real people to tell real stories about overcoming issues, about facing with courage and triumph the significant obstacles many of us face every day. So let's join Kathryn Raaker for Born Before 64.
Hi, I'm Kathryn Raaker of Born Before 64, and I want to welcome you to our show tonight. We have a very famous author that wrote the book, One Last Hurrah, a story of making peace and making a difference, Mark Smith. And Mark is joined tonight with his daughter, Ashley Logan Smith, a 16-year-old daughter, and his wife Brenda couldn't make it tonight, and she's part of that inaugural group. He has 5 children, 6 children?
3 biological children and 3 foster children, which we have already started the adoption process on one of them.
Right, and this is the book that he's written. And I'm really proud to say that Mark's been on my radio shows twice now.
It's been a pleasure.
And you were a former WCW?
Right. It stood for World Championship Wrestling. World Championship Wrestling was originally the NWA, which more than likely a lot of the audience will remember.
Right. Was it the real stuff, or is it the stuff that we see on television?
Well, let's see. It was the stuff on television, but we went and visited the publisher this morning, Ashley, and my knee gave out and I fell down 1 step. And about an hour ago, my hip went out of joint when I got up. So it was what people call the fake stuff, but the injuries are pretty real.
Really? How old were you? Let's start back. Let's start back in the beginning. You're from a very simple family. Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood to start?
Yeah, very quickly. I'm the youngest of 5. It was a volatile home. When I would go to bed at night, I would hear fussing in the wall from the walls. Your
parents arguing?
Yes. Okay. I would hear boom, boom, booms, all kind of things.
Was your father aggressive?
Yes, and I did not realize at that time why. Just like most kids, when somebody's aggressive, you think, oh, they're a bad person, oh, they're a mean person, right. You know, whatever the case may be.
Right.
But as I got older, I realized that my dad himself had been beaten with chains, and there was a cycle of abuse.
Right.
And so the anger that I saw with the fist holes in the walls and so forth, those types of things, it was a learned behavior.
A learned behavior, and he was beaten himself by his parents?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your father. What kind of work did he do?
Okay. Well, my father did construction work in Florida. He actually caught snakes.
He caught snakes?
Yes.
For a living?
Yeah. There was a gentleman named Ross Allen that had a snake preserve down, I want to say it was close to Ocala, Florida. And my dad used to laugh telling me stories of how he would walk up to one of Ross's shows and there would be a large crowd gathering and Ross would be showing these big snakes and doing tricks, you know, how he could handle them. My dad would be having an old sack, burlap sack or a potato sack. And he would ask the people, please don't butt my sack. People would look at my daddy like he was real stuck up. Then all of a sudden, Ross Allen would see my dad and say, by the way, you may wonder where we get our snakes. That gentleman right back there with the bag, what you got for us today, brother? And my dad would walk up with 5 or 6 snakes this big, and the people would just about pass out in the audience.
Now, was this like what type of a show was it, or was it a?
Well, it was like a zoo-ish type, a zoo-ish type.
Oh, a zoo-ish type.
Like a preserve, an animal preserve.
An animal preserve,
yeah.
right. And so your dad would bring the snakes to them. Where would your dad get the snakes from?
Just doing construction, and he did that in Florida for several years in the construction business. Believe it or not, this would have been back in the 60s or late 50s. So then the family moved to Georgia, and he was a police officer for a while, for a few years, and then owned a gas station, a service station, where we would go out and pump the gasoline, the old full service type stations. Right. And that's where I grew up.
Now let me ask you, are your mom and dad still alive?
My mother is. My dad passed away with cancer. He had visited us in Texas several years ago. And I had one of the hardest conversations I ever had to have. I told him, I said, Daddy, I need you to be my daddy. And I need you to be a real grandparent. Not just pop in and out.
Because he wasn't.
No, he was very distant. My dad, to come to find out, was so insecure about himself that he was afraid to let people in.
But you're not.
I've gotten over that. This has been so liberating for me. See, I think when people know about me, it's freedom, Kathryn. I don't have to have any skeletons in the closet. We all hurt. We all have experiences that probably we regret, but we learned from them. And I bet you tonight, in your audience, there's thousands of people that are hurting.
That's right.
And what do?
And Ashley, having your dad be the way he is today, do you remember him in a different way or a different situation?
I don't think I really remember him being any less of a shy person than he is now.
Right.
He's always been, with us as far as his kids go and with other people, he's always been very open and let us, we've grown a lot closer and everything than most kids to their parents just because of his stories that he's told us and everything.
Right. So you are you're not the oldest?
No, ma'am, I'm the middle child.
You're the middle child. And so who's older? Who's your oldest brother, sister?
It's a sister, yes, ma'am. She's 20.
She's 20?
Yes.
So tell me the range of ages that you have in your family, because now you have, there's 3 biological and then there's 2 adopted or 3 adopted, right?
We have an 11-year-old foster kid.
Foster child.
Foster child, yes. He is in 6th grade. We have his older brother, who is 14. Then we have my biological brother, who is 13 now.
Yeah, 13.
And then there's myself, I'm 16. And then we have a girl named Cheyenne. She is 16 now.
And we're actually adopting Cheyenne.
Yes.
Right. So you have 2 foster children plus Cheyenne. Are you adopting all 3 of them?
That's the plans for in the future.
Right.
We're taking things slowly because with the adoption process, there has to be of course there's a change legally as far as relationship, but there has to be a family growth. There has to be a bonding, a trust. Because our family motto is we can work through anything, but we have to be honest with each other. That's why I wrote the book. That's why the kids know the stories that are in the book, is because I've made mistakes and I'm willing to admit it. I want them to learn from it.
Right. And do you think, Ashley, he's a loving father?
Definitely.
Definitely.
Yes, ma'am.
And on that note, we're going to take a short break. Can you give your website out to our audience, please?
Sure. Just remember one last hurrah, because that's the name of the book, www.B464.com. onelast-hurrah-web.com.
And we'll be right back after these messages on Kathryn Raaker's Born Before 64 with Ashley and her dad, Mark Smith, and the author of One Last Hurrah.